And hello, you amp aficionados who, because of apartments, partners, kids, dogs, police, and many other reasons can't crank up their amps, which is a fun thing to do, and I encourage you to do it because a cranked up amp in the room vibrating and resonating the guitar is a feeling that we're kind of missing nowadays. But I fully understand that it isn't possible in many situations, which is why we have load boxes, IR loaders, and attenuators. Let me quickly go through what the differences are. A load box behaves like a speaker and makes sure that your amp has the load, can get rid of its load. That sounds dirty now, but you know what I'm talking about. The amp can shoot its load into the box, is therefore safe. No sound happens. It's just taking the power that the amp outputs, okay? An IR loader is a digital capture of a speaker, and you can now take this load boxed, reduced signal, turn it into a line signal, so reduce it in power, turn it into a line signal with some electronical doo-ha that I don't understand, and feed it into that digital component, which will give you capture, if you will, an impulse response of a cap. There's also ways of doing this in an analog way, analog cap simulation, which is really just tweaking EQ to sound like a certain cap. But that has been surpassed by the quality of IRs. So that's what an IR loader is. In order to get your signal into the IR loader, you need the load box, okay, to get the level of the amp tamed into a line signal. And an attenuator is taking the power of the amp, reducing it, and giving parts of it still to the cap, so that your cap is quieter than it was before. Ideally, you have an attenuator that's continuous and you can dial it in, and your amp is at its perfect volume, its perfect operating, and then you dial that down so that you can survive in the room. And there are different versions of this. There are pure IR loaders, so you still need a separate load box to feed it its line signal. There are pure load boxes. They just make sure that your amp isn't exploding. And there are attenuators. Now, some of them combine all three, some of them combine different aspects of it. What we're looking at today, the Amp Central by RedSeven, is technically all three, but the attenuator element is really just cutting it in half. So it's, I'm going to say, almost ignorable. I'm sorry, RedSeven, but reducing a 100 watt amp to 50 watts is still a lot of watts, okay? Half volume is still quite a bit of volume. So we're looking at the Amp Central Evo. Before we go into any more stuff, let's take it out of the box first, huh?
Raging coils, electric fire. Set the tone higher and higher. RedSeven, rage unseen in this labyrinth of machine. Crush the sound, make it scream. RedSeven, metal dream. Volume bends, brutal might. Low box fury, endless night.
Well, what you saw there was a pre-production boxing. I then got a production boxing, and it looked quite a bit nicer than what I unboxed there. So absolutely flawless packaging there. And yeah, you want it, so here it is. Some nice product shots, so you already see some details with some sounds recorded with the Evo. does this thing have two names? Well, because there's an amp central and there's the amp central evolution, the Evo. So the amp central I also have. It's in my rack under the aux. Now, the thing that is special about the Amp Central Evo and the Amp Central is its reactive load. What is a reactive load? A tube amp, which is really what we want to deal with, needs to see a cab, a speaker. Why? Because of some kind of electronic-y boo-ha-ha, I don't know. When it sees the speaker and pumps its power into the speaker does something and gives information or electric-y things back to the tubes, and they speak to each other. They're a nice couple. And that communication in an electrical way is important for sound. Now, what kind of virtual speaker, in electronic terms, does your amp see? Well, that's determined in the load box. Boss with the tube amp expander had it tweakable. There are top end and bottom end tweakabilities on the Fryette versions to give it kind of a little bit of a different response. And there really are differences in how the whole thing feels. Ideally, for the rock, and come on, RedSeven is rock and metal maybe, we want the behavior and the feel of a 412. The way that it chugs, we want to feel we're playing a 412. And no load box that I've ever played gets closer to that feeling than the Amp Central from RedSeven. The aux is a great speaker simulator, load box, and attenuator. It absolutely is great. It also now is $1,500. But as far as its reactive load part goes, it is not as cool as the RedSeven. The RedSeven is, without a doubt, one of the best reactive loads on the market. Let's go through some features and what has changed and what they've added, and it's actually pretty damn cool. So let's start to look at the front panel. We now have a little display, which when you actually look at it doesn't flicker because that's just camera frame rates. And there's an edit knob, and you can click that as well to go through the IRs. You can load 16. And you can see preamp, that's already, giving you a little bit of information we're going to get to later. So you go, and you don't even have to click. By clicking, we get to editing. You can change the preset. You can pick a different IR on the left and the right. Doing all this on the little display is absolutely possible. It's absolutely clever camera, Leslie. It's absolutely possible, but it is obviously a practice room stage thing. You probably want to edit it with the editor, which we'll look at later, which you can download as an app for free on iOS, Android, Mac, whatever. The thing has Bluetooth. Yep. Does it have Wi-Fi? I think it's Bluetooth connection. The USB actually is only for who knows what. I didn't even need the USB. It's just Bluetooth and it works. So you can pick the IRs left and right, and you can set it to stereo or mono, of course. There's a power amp sim, which is right now off, but they have a lot of RedSeven power amps in there. A back button would have been nice. You have to go all the way to the bottom to go back. Now, why a power amp sim? Because, we'll get to this, it has a line input, and if you have a preamp, you could go in, well, but you're missing the speaker and the power amp. Well, it's simulating the power amp, and it's giving you the speaker. So you could go in and have it usable only with preamp pedals or two preamps or whatever. And we're, of course, going to test that. Now it has a built-in noise gate with full parameter selection. And you can set that per preset or globally. And you don't even have to do anything. There's a threshold right there. You don't even have to go into that menu. Of course, it has MIDI, and that's all the stuff you can do on the front panel. But that is rather convenient. Well, there's more knobs. Let's look at them. Phone's volume goes out there. You can feed it with analog, aux in if you want to play along with something, and it comes out of the back. So that's kind of cool for practicing or whatever. Not sure about Bluetooth audio, actually, if that works, because it has Bluetooth. USB, I don't think it's actually for editing. I think it's probably more for firmware updates. That's your input volume, which I have to pad because all my amps were kind of going in hot. Line out level is different than the main out level. The line out level is a non-speaker simulated output. I use this as my attenuator. No, that is wrong. I said it wrong. I used it as my load box when I was doing captures on my Nano Cortex, because the Nano Cortex cannot be fed from an amp. You're going to break it. You have to have a line signal going in. So I used the Amp Central Evo to tame the amp and then feed that signal unprocessed into the Nano Cortex and do captures of my amplifiers. So it's great for that as well. And now we're going to look in the back. 24 volt DC, 300 milliamp. Of course, it comes with a power supply. There's MIDI in and MIDI through. You can absolutely switch things on stage with the MIDI switcher. I have not set that up. It's not relevant for this video, but obviously that makes it very flexible. There's the line in for preamps or pedals. There's the line out, which is unprocessed audio. There's a XLR stereo output, and right next to it is 1/4 inch stereo output. There's a stereo send and a stereo return, which is absolutely awesome. And you can see on top, I have an Eventide Ultra Tap connected in stereo so that we can check that out. There's the amp input. Right next to it is the going through, the blue one, to your cab. And you can see that clicky switch next to it. That would give you full or half power. Right now it's set to half power, I think. But it's irrelevant because I don't have a cab connected anyway. So you could do half power, but half power is still a lot of power. You might ask yourself, why is it sitting on a Blackstar St. James 100? So that it's high enough so that we can film the back, because it would be sitting in front of my keyboard and you wouldn't see anything. Okay, we'll go through the app later in this video, but now we'll just go through some of the included IRs, which are absolutely fine. Obviously, with the use of the app, you can load any IRs you choose. If you're a classic player, load your classic 112s, 110s, 212s. If you're a super modern metal player, load all your exaggerated Mesa and Engel oversized V30s. Do whatever. Going through all the different IRs in the world isn't going to happen. I'm not going to do it. You can mix IRs using, because it plays two at the same time. You can mix those. The way that it is set up, they're kind of left and right, which is why I actually see different levels on the left and right when I'm recording, and that's what you might be hearing. It's a little bit unbalanced because it's different IRs going left and right. But of course, you can tweak that, you can pan it, you can do all sorts of things. Off we go. Now we're going to start with some cleans, right, which is, I know, relatively boring for you, and you probably don't hear the massive difference in cabs. I'm still looking at the wrong camera, that you will hear when we're driving it, but I think clean is relevant, especially with a nice effect, and we can hear the stereo-ness. I'm going into the Bombshell Overdrive by Amplified Nation, a very, very nice dumbbell style amp. I have a MIDI switcher from Motrix here on the table for those who asked. Absolutely super cool MIDI switcher right there. I've got different pages with my amps. I can also change the H90 there, turn it on and off, and many, many, many other things. Here we go. That amp is driving a bit, so I'm gonna go single coil. In case you're wondering, this is a Sully Conspiracy Series B stock that clocks in at 1,050, which is ridiculous. They are sold out. in this color. There are still some red ones left, but if you watch this video later, there are always runs. And check out the new run that's going to arrive in April 25. There's an aquamarine color for a Corina Trella. This is the 71 Trella. Stunning! And Sully said he has no pre-orders. I fell in love with the mock-up of the guitar. Check out Sully Guitars and the Conspiracy series. And especially the new run number 8. Get your hands on one of those aquamarine trellas. This is a phenomenal guitar. Like, I'm not shitting you. Phenomenal. So if I turn on the effect now, which is wired up, we have a super cool ping pong. Slip there. Ed the King, probably not your cleanest cab. Obviously, he's talking about Ed Sullivan, the talk show host. Now, what's the deal with this effects loop? That is brilliant because you might have some amps that you want to tame that don't even have effects loops, where the power amp is creating the sound, and then you can't have time-based effects like this in the amp, like the Morgan MVP66 or the one that's on the Friedman Plex. So the Plex doesn't have an effects loop, so we can crank it, but we can still put effects behind it before we're hitting the recording or the speakers in the house. Yeah, maybe late 70s. That sounds good. But as I said, you can hear not the biggest differences when it comes to clean. So we're going to go to drive. Going to click my Motrix, going to click Plex. Start at the beginning. And why not leave a bit of that effect in? Getting quite a hot signal here. So dial it back a bit. Let's go some more high gain. We're going to go to the Engel. What's happening there? This is my only gripe with this box. It is massively microphonic and does feedback, something about the components in there that are just very susceptible to feedbacking with the guitar when you have higher gain settings. Obviously not an issue for lower gain settings. With the higher gain settings, it is. That means actually sitting in front of it with a single coil guitar with some higher gain sounds, absolutely not happening. It just doesn't work. It is meant to be on the amp. Why it is on an amp, that's why I have it on an amp right now. It's got very nice high feet. And you are supposed to be away from the amp. If you were on stage and turned around and walked to your amp or close by it, chances are you will get feedback. Honestly, I'm not okay with that. It is what it is. They know about it. That is just the construction of the thing. I have not encountered it like this with any other load box, but right now we got a super high gain sound and so the noise gate threshold can't fix that. Look, I'm just reporting what's in front of me, and that's what's in front of me. A lot of that stuff is Eddie themed. Okay, but of course, there's a nice selection of IRs in there, but you probably want to tweak it to have your own. And as I said, this is very stereo because it's two different IRs panned hard left and hard right. In a production, you might not do that anyway. You might put them together, do it mono, and then double your guitars left and right. Let's check out, we got one more amp set up, because why not? The Fryette Deliverance, no feedback there. That's all the way to the top right there. It's really cool with that effect. Obviously, turn that off. And we all have, as I said, our favorite IRs. Now it slowly goes away, so that noise gate is set up very slow. But and bam, it's gone. Let's set up quickly for the preamp section, right? So I have an overdrive pedal on the table. It is the Soldano Super Lead Overdrive. It's even in the name, SLO. Is it a preamp? Well, one could see it as that, but where really is the difference between what's a preamp and what's an overdrive? I don't really know. Let's treat it as a preamp type pedal. And I'm going in, as you can see in the back, the line in now. And let's see if that's all I need to do. So we have to set up the levels differently because obviously now we're going in with a rather smaller level. That works. Again, this is now we don't have any tubes. This is a transistor pedal going into a thing, and then we have a digital power amp. And as always with these types of situations, you might have to crank up the top end on your preamp to make it work. But all of a sudden, look at this. Here we have a simulated ER34. Six of six. KT88. Definitely more clipping here because it's, stronger. Different KT88. '84. Back to KT88 and Katy Perry. Plexi-ish, whatever that was. Underworld Plexi. And that's it. Now, that's a great addition and a nice selection to breathe life into your pedals. You might want to, I don't know, have a model, have a quad cortex or whatever. I know it's got all that shit built in, but try it and see if you might be able to breathe different life into your digital sounds or your analog preamps. I have that cheese preamp back there. Could have used that. That's a tube preamp based on a Soldano, actually, from RD Amplification, from Rob Dix. Thank you, Rob. That's all possible, and you can run so much more of your gear with this because it has a line input. The aux at 1500 does not have a line input. Exactly. And there's effects, because I have one on top of it. So now, okay, we got the threshold set for the gate. That is so massively cool, because that's a pedal, and I'm sculpting my whole sound, and going stereo into the DAW, which is what we're hearing. Let's look at the app. It actually connects with Bluetooth. This is how I'm connected right now, and that's pretty impressive. So you don't even need a cable. The USB cable is really just for firmware updates. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You get an IR section, a power amp sim section, noise gate on off, a MIDI section. And up here, those are the presets. You can go back and forth. And you could easily look at all of them at the same time, trash them, edit the name, and upload it to something. I don't even know what that does. No, upload a new IR in there. That's how you do that. And then you also have, very important, the program change numbers, number 1 through 16. So I can easily switch that with MIDI. Very easy to edit. You could, of course, do a lot of these things on the actual device, but I would recommend not doing that. So I'm on preset number 4. Let's see. I'm connected to the Amplified Nation Bombshell Overdrive, which is a Dumble amp. You can see the waveform is different on the left than on the right because there's actually quite a bit of stereo spread happening set up down here with different mics. Which I could turn, of course, to some. That's really boring now. Let's check this out again. Of course, in a mix, you probably have 2 double-tracked tracks left and right, so you would probably run it mono, but in stereo, that just gives you a lot of wididity. Now, the output you cannot set up with a knob on the actual device, but you've got volume left and right here set to 50%. So the output can be quite a bit hotter if you wanted that. And you change the IR right here. And again, you can open a list and see the IRs. Those are not presets, those are IRs. Right now, I see that the noise gate's trying to close. So just set the threshold a bit higher. And you can set the threshold on the actual device with a knob. But here you have attack release. Hysteresis. There's a global mode, a preset. Per preset or just globally for the whole device. Nice. So definitely setting up your Amp Central Evo with the app at least once to your liking makes a lot of sense. MIDI channel and back to IR. So let's see, I could maybe turn this down. Whoa. Okay, we'll leave that. I'm grabbing it now from the device, probably onto my computer. So you can go to the Amp Central or actually also grab them, and then it's in downloads if you wanted them on your computer. So, but selecting them, how would I select that? Open list? Oh, double click, of course. Nope, apparently not. You apparently stepped through them. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. So these random 2 you can now mix. So in mono, you would actually be able to mix 2 IRs together. And here's the power amp sim. If you want to go into the line input and actually just use it with pedals, a modeler or whatever. And apparently It sounds even good when you do it behind an actual amp that already has a power amp. And there's tons of them, and they're actually power amps from RedSeven amps. So that's the Duality, the Leviathan. '84. Loads of different power amps. Very cool. So that whole app also exists, get this, as a Bluetooth device on your phone, Android or iOS. So all that stuff you could do on the fly in a practice room, on a stage, whatever. If your front of house guy says, well, you know what I'm getting here, please give me mono. So you go to some. If your front of house guy says, that cab's just too woofy, you can quickly pick a different IR. Pretty damn nifty, right? Right. Well, I'm having fun. Okay, back to me. So, my 2 cents. It's one of the best sounding reactive loads. It has a power amp simulation. It has a stereo effects loop, stereo out, stereo IR capability, a workable, super easy app that connects with Bluetooth, which means you could do this from your phone. It's power amp simulation. I already said it is a kind of bare bones attenuator as well. It cuts your signal in half at least. It's got MIDI. It's got an aux in. You can practice with headphones. It's all there. My only gripe, and the price, 700 and something euro, is fair compared to other devices on the market. It's absolutely competitively priced. It's not bargain basement, but it isn't a toy. It is a serious product for serious musicians. There are, of course, also rack ears, so we could rack mount it just like I rack mounted the original Amp Central. It's a great box. My only gripe is that feedbacking, which is, depending on your gain, pretty drastic. So you might want your amp and the Amp Central rather far away from you, possibly in the studio room, and you're running something from the control room and have a wall in between you. When you're running single coils, it's pretty tough to be rather close to it. So be prepared if you walk into your amp to make adjustments that there will be feedback. I don't understand the technical issues, why that has to be, but they assured me that that is normal for it. Okay? That's all I gotta say. Check it out. Luca and his team, fantastic people, and that really matters. Who are you buying from matters in this world. It's a great company from Italy. It is made in Italy from great people who really know tone. Total nerds like us. I'll put links below. Please use them. That supports the channel. And thank you, Luca, for commissioning this video. And Animals at the end.
Wires twist and burn, voltage surge, no return. Feed the beast, make it grow. Our surge, let it flow. Raging coils, electric fire. Set the tone, higher and higher. RedSeven, rage unseen. In this labyrinth of machine. Crush the sound, make it scream. RedSeven, metal dream. Volume bends, brutal might. Low box fury, endless night.